Welcome back to the Oblivious Maximus podcast. I'm on my own. I'm Aaron, that's my name, but I'm here by myself. Ben's at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival doing stand-up comedy, and I was going to have a co-host, Otis, which I am going to still have. He just wasn't available today, so you just got me, old school Oblivious Maximus styles, and today I am joined by Jake from Kingpin.
Hello.
It's hard getting a crowd vibe happening with just me here by myself. So two people in a room now.
Yeah.
Thank you for being the first solo guest on the new version of the podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Glad to be here.
So before I get into deep things to talk to you about, your recent moves in the world of Australian punk and hardcore.
Yes.
Can you give us a little Jake history? Tell us how you got into this weird music world we're in.
Okay, so I think going back to when I was a kid, I was like into rap music. I wasn't really into like heavier styles or anything alternative really. The turning point for me was as a Christmas present, I got Guitar Hero World Tour.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely obsessed with it. So I would just like sit there for hours and hours and hours and play that.
What was the song?
There were so many good ones. I think a big turning point for me was System of a Down, BYOB.
Okay. Hard.
Yes, absolutely. And then it moved on to Rock Band, and I started to play the drums on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up becoming like one of the highest ranked people in the world on that game. So I was
Huge.
like, maybe I should actually play real drums instead. So
what songs were you in the repertoire for the drums?
Like as in what was like the songs I was like highest?
Yeah.
I think it was like really random songs, like One Step Closer by Linkin Park.
Great.
And I think a Guns N' Roses song off like the Chinese Democracy album, which I think I deliberately chose to do that because I was like, this is like, no one likes this era of Guns N' Roses, so I can do this and I'll get really high on the leaderboard. And it worked. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
There's a game called Rocksmith, which is like where you plug your guitar in.
Yes.
And Josh, who played guitar in I Exist for a little while, I think was like the number one in the world on Aces High by Iron Maiden.
That's a good song to be number one in the world on. Like, I can't really say anything cool about that era of Guns N' Roses. So it's...
Well, the cool thing is you being really good at it. Clearly.
Yeah, I guess I'm all right at drums at a video game, so that's good.
So music started for you from video games.
Yeah. I was a huge gamer growing up. Like, my first childhood memories are me just playing Crash Team Racing and Tekken 3. Like, yeah. So that's kind of
serious games.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you started getting into that, how did you go from doing that to playing in a band? Like, what was the next step to get you there?
Good question. I think for me, it was a point of I started to like the music that I was hearing in the game. And I'm like, oh, well, I like this type of music. So I would search for like all these bands. And then I was like, well, where is this community? Where can I see any of this? And then I would go to shows and then I would be like, damn, I want to do that. Like, I want to play in a band now.
Where were the first shows you went to?
I can't remember who was playing the first shows I went to. Besides like big concert hall ones, I remember seeing like Avenged Sevenfold and I think Dream on Dreamer opened for them as well, which is like really crazy. But in terms of small venues, like I remember going to Phoenix Youth Center and like I'd watch bands like Glorified back in the day and stuff like that. Yeah, that was kind of my starting point, just being in that like metalcore scene, because when I was young, like I could only go to those all age shows and they just happened to be metalcore shows.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy. Like you played a show at the youth center, like literally a week ago.
Yeah.
Like it's insane that venue is still going.
Yeah, I'm pretty blown away with the fact that it had a 6-year hiatus, and thanks to a few hardworking people within the Melbourne scene, it's now like a resurrected place. Like I got to see some amazing bands there.
Yeah.
It's one of the most like influential venues to me, like growing up. So getting to play it is like super cool.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny because growing up, same thing. I started out playing youth centers, and it was always like the kind of bread and butter for particularly like punk, hardcore, and metal bands is like, your kids. You got to play somewhere. You can't play pubs.
You could try to.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like in Canberra we could, but it meant like you had to leave after you played.
Exactly.
Or like my mum didn't really like dropping me at a pub. And funny sidebar, I did play a pub in Canberra like a week ago that I've been playing since I was like a kid, and my mum offered to drive us there so we could drink so that we didn't need to take, and then she drove the hire car home, and she was like, as we got out of the car, she was like, you could have never told me that when you were 13, I would still be doing this when you're in your late 30s. And I was like, thanks, mum. See you later. But yeah, those youth center venues are like, they are like the backbone of doing this stuff for it to continue.
Oh, 100%.
Because as I've now spoken about like 30 times on this podcast, like hardcore is music for young people. And like you cannot knock them out of it. You have to help them participate in it. As much as now I'm like, I don't really need to go to a youth center anymore. But at the same time, I'm like, I know I got to. Like I got to participate still. Yeah. But, I think the thing for me is like seeing a wave of bands and a wave of people going through those places again, and that they haven't fallen apart. Like the place is clearly still happy to do it. Yeah. People are still happy to go there. Yeah. Like it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, and it really rejuvenates things too, because there's nothing more fucking boring than the same 5 bands being the bands forever.
Yep. There was a long period of time where I got into hardcore, and that was basically the drill. It was like, for a couple of years in Melbourne, it was like, I wonder what bands will be on the show. The exact same bands. An international's here. What bands are going to support them? The exact same bands.
Yeah.
And right now, the scene is like really flourishing. I think there's so much variety in terms of like different styles of hardcore and how it's played and age and all that kind of stuff. And I think we're at a really unique point of time, at least for as long as I've been in the scene. I'm sure it was different before I was around, but right now, this is the best that it's been since I've been here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, we've been talking about it since we started doing this again, but like, I feel like I've been doing this for long enough now to have seen like a couple peaks and troughs. Like I've seen when it's popped up, and then I've seen when it's been like absolute dog shit. And I've definitely participated when it's been both. Like I've seen the positives, and then like the super, 10 people at the upstairs at the Gasso times.
Oh, yes.
Like.
Well, to be fair, if it's 10 people up top at Gasso, that's like half a room, to be honest.
It is pretty full. It is pretty full. But like definitely right now is like couldn't be more enthusiastic about what is happening with it. And to be fair, like it's even, and I feel like it's at a far more accepting point too. Like the band I'm doing now, the Aglo band, like I would have never have tried to have run that in maybe 10 years ago. I would have just been like, no way, this is too slow. Like no one will give a shit. But like we've recently played like 5 hardcore shows. Yeah. And the response has been amazing. Yeah. Like, and I was like, oh, cool. Kids like get Crowbar now.
Yeah,
like,
which they should have always, but yeah.
But no,
shit's heavy.
Yeah, I'm glad it's sort of come around. But like, I mean, I think, for me, it's seeing people still booking shows at those places, seeing people putting in the effort to get younger people to play these kind of shows. Like, I mean, we played this show on the Sunshine Coast, and like the first band that played had to have been like 14.
That's
like,
so sick.
Could not have been older than that. And which was very funny for us being like the age we are, being like Matt, who plays bass in Aglo, is like, he's like, I'm definitely old enough to be their dad. And like their parents were there, and Matt was like, oh, I look exactly like their parents.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, that probably was the same for, I don't know, I don't want to call them that old, but like probably the same for Mindsnare. The first time I played with Mindsnare, they were probably like, look at this fucking dork. Like, but, you know, it's worked out good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what was like when you started participating in those shows? What were the first bands that you were doing in that sort of stuff?
So I'm trying to recall. One of the first bands that I remember that was playing like within the scene was a band called Sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
That was like emo-y, like gazy kind of stuff. It wasn't until a fair bit later when I started to like do things that were a bit more heavier.
Yeah.
Band I did after that was called Cast Down. And then after that, I believe it was Broken, Imprison, Porcelain. So like
it kind of spiraled from there. I didn't realize you were in Cast Down.
Yeah, I was in Cast Down when it was like a beatdowny band before it went like full industrial mode.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love the industrial stuff. So I thought it was cool that band was trying to push boundaries in that regard. But yeah, I wasn't in it at the time, so I can say that.
But so I guess, you know, doing all that, obviously then, you know, I think I met you around the time of those sort of like Broken and the doing that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But how did, you know, I think you immediately, as far as I remember, fell into being like one of the 4 drummers in Melbourne.
Yeah, I had a feeling this was going to get brought up on the podcast. There was a very dark time in Melbourne where there was no drummers and
people were trying to get me to play drums again. And I was like, I can't be doing this. It's way too much effort for me.
Well, when was the last time you drummed in a band?
Well, I played drums on the first 2 Aglo things just because I wanted to try to do it.
Yeah.
And I played one show filling in for Potion like 2 years ago.
True.
Yeah, which was very fun. But after doing it, I was like, I can't ever do this again. Like, this is so much work. I had to practice so much to be good at drums. Like, I'm not, definitely in hindsight, I'm not like a natural drummer. Like, I got to be jamming every day.
Fair.
But the last time I actually played drums in a band would have been Outright.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But
I didn't realize you drummed in Outright.
I started the band.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go.
I wrote all the songs on the first thing.
There's some lore.
Yep, there's some lore, truly. Sorry, Yells, I've outed your band. But when I first moved down here, Yells was kind of one of the first people that I really started hanging out with a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she was like, I want to be in a band. And I was like, great, I'll write some songs.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, no, we got to do this and do this. I was like, no, it's that easy. You just start writing songs. And she was really obviously enthusiastic and then took the ball and ran with it.
Hell
and then they started getting offered awesome stuff. And I was like, I want to go play this thing instead. Not famously, but like they got offered shows with Refused.
That's mental.
And they played a bunch of shows with Refused. And I went and played 3 like dumb pub shows with Sex Wizard instead of playing the shows as Refused outright. So, you know, who could say what was a better choice? But yeah, that was the last time I would have played drums for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Properly, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the period that I'm talking about, people were like hitting me up being like, do you still have a drum kit? And I was like, yeah, I do, but I'm not fucking doing it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There was a stretch where you were like, you were in every band, I feel like.
Yeah, it was pretty annoying. And it's not annoying to the fact that I was playing the songs on drums. I just hate loading in.
Oh,
and
brother.
loading out.
Tell me about it.
I don't mind playing for 15 minutes. It's just hardcore. I'm playing this is the thing. They're like, how do you remember all the songs? I'm like, I'm playing the same beat across 4 different bands. Like, how could I forget these songs?
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah,
exactly. You figure it out. It's a 10,000 hardcore to me is a 10,000 hours thing. Like, you've been doing it for a while, you can basically get by.
Yeah, like, I'd probably say 10,000 minutes, not even hours. The bar is so low. It's like nowadays you can. I just tell all my friends like that aren't playing an instrument. I'm like, do it. Just start it up. Make it happen. You know?
Oh yeah, you'll get there. I mean, truly, like, you know, I started out playing drums and I did it like, you know, I mean, I went to school for it. I was doing it. I was trying really hard. And then I started playing guitar. And then immediately everything I did where I was playing guitar started doing better than the thing where I was playing drums. And I was like, either that means I'm way better at guitar than I am at drums, which I think is probably true.
Probably.
Or like I'm also personally, I care more about this thing. So I'm putting in more effort to it. Whereas drums for me started being school and I didn't like going to school. So it was kind of like a chore the whole time. And then when I continued to play drums in bands, I was like, same thing, like, oh, fucking load again, or oh, cymbal broke. Now that's another $600. Like
that is, I hate that.
Yeah. So I think truly when I was like, oh, guitar rocks, it's so much lighter. You can always borrow people's amps.
Oh yeah.
Changing strings only costs like $15. Like,
well, our last show, our guitarist borrowed another person's guitar.
Oh,
so, you know.
We when Extortion were in the States, we played some shows with a band who just brought nothing. And
so cool.
They were like, who's got picks? Like, truly, brought nothing. And I was like, and then every show they figured it out. And after like the third show of us lugging our shit everywhere, I think Jay said to me, he's like, maybe they're onto something. Like, because they got it. They're playing great every night. And we're fucking carrying this stuff all around America.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Not a bad move.
Not a bad move. But so you were playing drums in every band for a while.
Yes.
And then I feel like that came to an end at some point.
Yeah, there was a point of time where I was not drumming in any band at all. I wasn't doing any bands. And this was maybe just after COVID. Because I was drumming in AWOL at a point of time. So on the EP demo, whatever it is. Yeah. I was on that. But then we went our separate ways. And I, for the first time, was like, I'm a punter. Yeah. This is kind of nice.
And how was that for you, participating in that way again?
It was an interesting time for me because I wanted to figure out other ways I could contribute and make an impact without, being in the bands or, something like that. So for me, I wanted to try and pick something else up. At the time, I picked up photography. I bought a film camera, just started shooting shows with it. And then I felt like I got really good at that. And then I was like, okay, next thing. And then I got a video camera, started filming a lot of stuff, wanted to archive a lot because one thing that I have noticed about Australian hardcore's history is there is a lot of events that just have not been archived. And it is really difficult to find things from a certain time period without talking to someone that was directly in that time period. Yeah. Which is kind of mind-blowing to me that such a crucial time looking back, none of it is like existent anywhere. It's like lost media, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I truly regret is that there is a big stretch, particularly of like Canberra hardcore, that is just nowhere. Like it doesn't exist, basically. Like, particularly for me, like Hard Luck was like, I ended up being in a band with 3 of them and have done so for ages now. But like that band for us in Canberra was like the most important thing at the time because they were playing here all the time. They were playing in Sydney all the time. They were playing all the big fests. They had records coming out and, were touring and things like that. And thankfully some of their stuff is now on Spotify and on the internet and shit like that. But like there's almost no videos of them playing. And like,
which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. For the amount that they played and
the things they would have done, looking back at that, it's like, how is there nothing to document that this happened? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think like, I know Nate, who used to play in Hard Luck a long time ago, he's been doing a similar thing of getting people to give him, various types of media and he'll upload it to YouTube. Yeah. Like he's been doing it for even older than Hard Luck, but getting like old fucking Metal for the Brain videos from Canberra and uploading actual VHS to YouTube and stuff. And that mindset is fucking awesome because like, I mean, the other thing too, like a couple of years ago, like I just uploaded all the old I Exist stuff onto Spotify because I was like, I have it all. Yeah. It may as well be on there. I don't know why it's not. Yeah, so
I just put it all up, so at least it was done.
Yeah.
But a similar thing, like someone will care.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I can tell you now, there are a lot of people that do care.
Yeah. I mean, but so the video stuff particularly, like that's a huge thing.
Yes.
Particularly right now, given that so many people use YouTube as a way to like find stuff.
Oh, 100%. I think for me, when doing my current band, Forewarned, that I'm doing at the moment, a big reference point for me was a lot of old Australian hardcore bands that were metallic in the late 90s. And there is very minimal footage.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And it kind of pissed me off because I was like, I'm trying to use this as a reference point for the music I'm making, but it's just non-existent.
Non-existent, yeah.
Yeah.
What sort of bands?
Ultimatum was a huge one for me.
Yep.
Early Mind Snare.
Yep.
Within Blood. All that type of stuff, really. Day Contempt. These bands of that style where it's like almost like borderlining like Earth Crisis-y chug kind of riffs, but has that like a lot of those bands like sound like straight edge and like spirit-filled hardcore bands in the mid-90s in America, which is stuff that like I really like, but feel like it's a thing that isn't really played much today at all.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to do that and put my own spin on it.
Yeah, sick. But yeah, I mean, and I think like those bands certainly had like, I mean, obviously when I first started coming in, like those were the bands that were like everyone loved.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, obviously it's Mind Snare have stood the test of time
100%.
and continued on for a long time. But I mean, a lot of those bands certainly were like, yeah, if I wish there was more of their stuff in the world. You know?
Absolutely.
And I mean, Lloyd's probably got it all in his fucking garage or something, but like, you know, you got to get around the Lego set to get his stuff on the internet.
That's the issue. and on that note, like, not all the Ultimatum stuff is on Spotify, so get that on Spotify, please. Please. Actually, there's one tape that I've never even heard because, like, I keep asking around. I'm like, who has this? Who has this? The EP I found on YouTube, the tape, it's non-existent. If you have a physical tape, that's the only way you can like listen to it right now.
So Lloyd and Emily, move your Lego set.
Please.
And get the tape out.
I'm begging. I'm actually begging.
They'll never listen to this. So someone tell them who knows them, who's heard this. All right. So you start doing, well, I guess you were putting a lot of the video stuff up. I mean, that was a big kind of initial push.
Yes.
And then that has subsequently progressed into doing shows and things like that.
Yes.
So how did that kind of come about for you? Was it a necessity thing or was it like consciously like, I want to start booking shows as well?
In terms of booking shows, I booked maybe a handful of shows in the past before. I think the first shows I booked was a tour actually. So one of my old bands, Cage Existence, I think this was just after we put our EP out. I was like, screw like getting someone else to do this. I want to do this my way. I want to get the bands on that I want. Like at this time we were getting approached by like labels and stuff trying to like shape the band. And I was like, no, I want to keep this as independent as possible. So we did our own merch. We booked our own shows. We did everything ourselves. And that's one thing I'm super proud of with that band. And I think based on how that tour went, it kind of proved to me how easy it really is. You just got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. People are scared of the idea of doing it, but then when you're doing it, it's like, you just got to ask a question. Realistically, it's not that hard.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day too, for some people, it's like a confidence thing as well. I think they look at something and see that it's quite big or that it looks a certain way and assume that it's more difficult than it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, like everyone who's doing this thing has come to it. No one's come to it professionally. Like everyone's come to it from just doing it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think even people now who like work in really relatively like high powered industry positions, most of them come from just figuring it out too. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's not like school helped anyone with this stuff.
Oh,
really.
no,
Yeah. It's all just learning life lessons.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had a similar thing. Like initially the push of like, and I mean, I've participated in some of it too, I won't lie, but like when labels and cool stuff comes along, it's awesome to say yes to things like that. But half the time, the best stuff that you can manage for yourself is when you navigate it yourself anyway, because you get it the way you want to do it.
Yeah, you're tailoring it to yourself. And I think that's the thing that's so important. In terms of like the last recent shows that I booked, so I love Bloodmouth. I think they're an amazing fucking band. And I just was like, next time you guys are here, I want you guys to play a hardcore show.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right. So once all the members were back like in Australia at the same time, which happened like I think literally 8 or so months after the last time I spoke to them.
Yeah.
We ended up doing a weekender together and it went really well. We played a house show in Canberra and that was phenomenal.
Freezing cold.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was like pushing to like yell and just nothing was coming out. It was just like
just cold air.
Yeah, I was so upset. But it was a really fantastic show. And honestly, I think Canberra's scene right now is probably the most I'd say it's the number one scene in Australia at the moment.
Which is so good to hear for me personally.
It's ridiculous to think about because I remember Canberra for a lot of people in Melbourne, no diss to Canberra, but people were like, okay, here we go. It's the Canberra show. It's the throwaway show.
Yeah.
Now there's people that are really excited to go through Canberra. People want to go to Canberra. And yes, bands definitely should go to Canberra.
And it's solely because of those young guys, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
the youth there is amazing right now. It's so cool to see. Like Uzi Akimbo's like putting those house shows on and like everything that they do has like really rejuvenated the scene over there. It's honestly amazing.
Well, I mean, I didn't, unfortunately I didn't get to play one of their house shows, but like I did 2 shows with Down2 last weekend.
Yes.
And so I'd never, like, obviously I'm from there and I'm, now so much older that I assume they can correct me if I'm wrong, but like by the time I'd like moved to Melbourne, I think they were probably in like primary school. So like
that probably sounds about right.
I've like lived here for their whole adult life, their whole teenage and adult life. So they have no experience of me personally. So I hadn't met them. But I'd obviously been seeing all this stuff. And then the Bloodmouth guys have been playing shows of theirs and hanging out with them and meeting them and things like that. And so then I played this, these 2 shows on the weekend or 2 weeks ago. And the first show was in Newcastle and I hadn't seen them before, but I'd heard them and I liked the band. And they opened with Hellraiser by Ozzy Osbourne. And I have never been like more surprised. One, because from what I'd heard of the band, and then 2, more like over the moon stoked that like, oh, the young people from Canberra are still the same. Like it's still like what we were like when we were kids. Like we're going to play this like hardcore show and we're going to open with the midpoint Ozzy Osbourne record, Zakk Wylde era song. And fuck, I was at the merch thing and they just opened with the chorus to Hellraiser and I was like, holy shit, these kids are playing Hellraiser. And Lee, who plays in Potion, who's also in Aglo and Phantoms and stuff, Lee was like in the middle of the pit and just like head up, looking like directly at me like, oh, and I was like, yes. And I think I very like drunkenly told, the guys from that band, like, oh my God, man, Hellraiser, I can't believe you played Hellraiser. And they, they were suitably stoked that I noticed it, but it was fucking awesome to play with them. And then same in Canberra, like we played Canberra the next night and we played at a pub, as I mentioned earlier, but a ton of their mates were there. I mean, it was a place that, I used to play when I was a kid and I remember it being packed and psycho when I was a kid. and it was packed in Psycho now. And I think it's
so cool.
It's because of them. It's not because of me. Like, I live here. I'm not doing any of it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, doing those shows with Bloodmouth seemed like a real positive thing again. And you did something different here too, like in not the same venue that everyone always books here.
Yeah,
as well.
that's something I really wanted to do. I was like, look, what venues can I do? Originally, the show was supposed to be all age, but due to us having to do the Canberra show on that day, we had to move the time for the show.
Yeah.
But we still made it that underage people could come with a guardian.
Yeah.
Which honestly, you just walk up to the door, you just go in. Like,
yeah.
It was an all age show.
Yeah, that's fine.
But like, I want more people to like use other venues. I want more people to like just get a PA set and just set up anywhere and start playing. That's something that I really want to see start happening more.
Yeah. I've been very openly on this podcast a huge fan of the Bergie Band Room too.
Oh, that is easily the best new venue right now.
So this is another shout out to that venue, which I'm sure they would never hear this podcast, but broadly, it's also like a point of attack to the public. Book more shows at the Bergie Band Room. It's dope as.
Yes.
Good venue room.
Yeah.
Good beer garden room. Yeah. There's a bar outside. There's a bar inside. There's plenty of space.
I just remember.
Sounds good.
That Bloodmouth show was supposed to be at the Bergie. It was booked. So that's the reason why. So sorry, Bergie.
We'll do more there.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right. The reason I got you here today.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting into it now. 33 minutes in. We're getting to the crux point. So the Kingpin Fest.
Yes.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I decided to do a festival now.
Yeah. And to bring bands back from the dead.
Oh, yes.
For it.
A true resurrection with this one. For me, it was a big thing because I never got to see them. Mm-hmm. I never got to see DOC. They're one of those bands that I've liked for the longest time, but just never had the chance. And getting to do this and have them be a part of it is like an amazing thing for me. And
you're also reissuing the record for them too.
Oh, yes. And I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. How did that all come about with them?
So I'm trying to remember correctly the timeline of things because I was like, I would really like to see them play again. And I'm like, what would be something that could get them to play? And I asked for them to headline a fest I was putting on. I'm like, would you like to do this? I just messaged Ben just directly. And we just started chatting. And it was easy as that. And then he's like, yeah, all right, I'm in. And I was like, wow, that was a lot easier than I expected. So yeah, Jake and Tep was locked in. And then I was like, okay, now time to get some other bands. And basically, as soon as I told like every band that they're going to get to play with DOC, they're like, yep, I'm in. Yeah. Don't even care how much you offer. And like, that's kind of like a really special thing to me. The fact that people in hardcore don't care about monetary gain or value. It all comes down to everyone just wants to play the best shows. And I feel like for me, the show that I've put on is exactly what I want. It's the bands I like. It's the bands that I think are doing something right now in hardcore that are important. It's the bands that have done something in the past for hardcore that has been important. And I just wanted to bring it all together in the same room. People that are a part of different scenes of hardcore, because hardcore, as much as it is something that everyone is in together, it's still very segregated. And I feel like having a fest like this where, okay, a band like Shinto Katana is playing with Joy, you know? I can't imagine some of those people ever being in the same room, but, you know, to make something like that happen is really cool because at the end of the day, I like hardcore. I don't care about this whatever it is going on right now. This person has a problem with this person. Yeah. I don't care. I'm there to enjoy the music. I'm there to hang out with my friends. Set your shit aside. Enjoy yourself. Like, that's how it should be. And that's kind of my end goal with the fest. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like it really feels like shows that, used to happen a long time ago. Like the mix is very diverse in terms of who's playing, but also where they're from too. Like, it's bands from all over the country. Like, there's a really broad representation of people playing and stuff like that. So
I mean, I'm very revved up for it. I think it'll be dope.
Awesome.
Even in the last episode, we had Al Carlson, who's a, local lunatic.
Yes.
He's got a ticket too.
Yeah,
we're getting down.
Yeah, shout out to him. What a legend.
Thanks, Carlson. But I think it's awesome putting stuff on like that and putting it out in a way that gives an opportunity, as you said, to newer bands and younger bands to play with bands that are like reforming or older or have contributed something that maybe. I'm sure there's a ton of people who are going and also playing who never got an opportunity to see DOC. So it's
for sure,
and miles away too to that point as well.
Well, last time Miles Away played Melbourne was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I can guarantee you there are so many people in hardcore right now that have not seen DOC. They haven't seen Miles Away. They haven't seen Shinto. They haven't seen Outsiders Code.
Yeah.
And like these bands, like at least from my perspective, are so influential to like the climate of Australian hardcore.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and I think like as well, like if you look at the history of bands that have come here and done all this stuff, like a lot of those bands and people who participated in those bands or been involved with them have been like pretty important to linking, shit together. I mean, the first tour I Exist ever did was with Shinto.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is like weird in the scope of what the bands are.
Yeah,
but at the same time, that's also like a credit to what hardcore is. Like,
yes, absolutely.
It was weird as hell, but I've been friends with those guys now since I was like a child because of that. So it all links up.
Yeah. I think it's really cool when bands outside of hardcore or bands that are adjacent to hardcore can do hardcore shows. Yeah. Again, going back to like when I saw Aglo play, I can't remember which shot was it, Stay Gold, but I don't think I was ever gonna mosh to a cowbell part in my life, but I did.
Hey, thank you for participating to the cowbell pit. I am still so Braden, who plays drums in Aglo, has a habit of forgetting to ring the cowbell. So now before every show, I send him a text that's just cowbell reminder.
Yeah.
And he is remembered every time. And the cowbell part hits,
Yes. He needs like an alert on his phone.
Oh, brother. Let me tell you. When I recorded that, well, I didn't record the cowbell part, but I purchased the cowbell that's on it. But I was like, I got this idea I need cowbell on the record. And I've had cowbell on everything that I've done now with Aglo. And it's just because on 2 Crowbar records, there's cowbell.
Yeah.
So it's just ripping off that, essentially. So I'm like, I just got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then when I pitched the idea in that song to Colin from God's Hate and stuff, who played drums on that, he was like, I already got the bit. I know it. And I was like, what bit? And he's like, I need to show you.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you.
Yeah.
And then we were just sort of like jamming it. And that was the bit he put it in. And I was like, you put it in like the funniest part on the record.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, that's going to be the first song on the record now.
Yeah.
And it has been like the best thing to play live is just having that fucking donking the whole time.
And it's so funny because as soon as he pulls it out and chucks it on the stand, everyone's just like...
He's really making a meal of it by having it elsewhere and then bringing it out. Like,
it really makes a point. It's like, it's about to happen, okay?
Yeah, not having it ready to go is... Anyway, that's I appreciate you pitting to the cowbell. But so from obviously the fest is September 21.
Yes.
At the Prince.
Yes, it is.
Tickets still going.
Yes.
Few left.
Yes. So I think we're down to around 250 at the moment. Typical people don't like getting pre-sales. I know how it is. But once the fest gets closer, it'll sell out.
Yeah. So buy a ticket now.
Yes.
So you don't miss out. Or else.
No door spot.
No door spot, baby. But what else is on the cards? Do you have more stuff planned? I mean, I saw today you posted and you got some moves happening for another fest.
Yeah. I'm already in preparation for next year's fest, and I'm planning on upscaling it significantly.
Okay, sick.
Significantly. That I'm very excited about because I do want to bring over international bands and stuff like that. I want to try and move into that world. So that's kind of what I want to do. I want to also try to make it more independent. I want to get rid of having like another venue, like a bar venue host it. I want it to be accessible to all ages and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm kind of leaning down the whole route for next year.
Yeah.
Which is kind of exciting for me because I want this fest to be exposed to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think the other thing too is like coming to it from that lens as well provides an opportunity then to expand it in different, with different, getting different people involved who can participate in other ways with it as well then too, because when you're working with a bar, you're restricted to what they want you to do in their venue and stuff like
100%.
that. 100%. So
yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And what about the band stuff? What's on the cards for bands?
So I'm playing drums in a band called Post Heaven at the moment. Mm-hmm. We are playing a all ages show that is coming up next month. I don't know the date, but
that's okay. I think I saw it on Instagram. So
yes.
Go to Instagram to find those details. You'll find
it there. It's at Phoenix Youth Center.
Yeah.
Another all ages show.
Nice.
So that's the next Post Heaven show. The next, depending when this is going to be up, I'm not too sure.
This is going to go up this week. I'm going.
Oh, all right. Well, then
as I've talked to you about, I'm very good at editing video now. Now that I've done one.
Yeah, he's ready to go. So this Sunday is Kublai Khan, AWOL, Guilt Trip, Forewarned.
I didn't realize AWOL were playing.
Yes,
that's crazy.
Terra are no longer playing. Yes.
Brutal.
It is really brutal. I am very upset about it, but these things happen, I guess. But this is the first time I'm getting to play with AWOL, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, nice. So, good one. Yeah. That'll be fun. And any other records or anything like that in the cards?
So right now I'm recording the Forewarned LP. Mm-hmm. Tracked vocals yesterday, and hopefully we'll be finishing them in the next few weeks.
Mate, your voice sounds great for someone who yelled yesterday. My voice would sound like absolute dog shit.
It's really funny. I was exiting the session being like, I feel fine, like my voice, but I had the worst migraine. like as I was yelling, I was like holding the back of my head. No. I was just feeling it. I was like, we have to end it, not because of my throat, but because of my head.
Well, I'm glad your throat held up so that you could come and talk to me for
absolutely.
about all this other stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining me, mate. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, where can they follow you on the internet?
If you want to keep up to date with things that I do musically, Kingpin Melbourne would probably be the best way, because that is like the label, that's the fests, that's pretty much most of the stuff that I do within the scene goes through that. But if you want to just message me directly, Little from the World on Instagram. So there you go.
Dope. And also, you filmed part of the extortion set that we put on YouTube recently.
Wait, was this the
release show?
Oh, yeah. I did see that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That was a very good show.
Yeah.
That was an awesome show. Yeah.
So go watch that on YouTube too. I'm in it.
He definitely is.
Thankfully, Pablo switched to your angle at the very end. I just tripped over a guitar lead and smashed my head into a microphone. And I don't know if he noticed, but he was like right next to my head.
Yeah. He would have edited that out.
And then he went to your angle. So I was like, thank fuck. No one, he didn't zoom in on me going like, but yeah, thank you very much for being here, mate. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Ben will be back soon. I don't know. He might not be. Who knows? He might live in Edinburgh now. Stay tuned for more Oblivious Maximus. Bye. Bye-bye.